everybody, welcome back. This is the last video in my NaNoWriMo series. I've been posting a video every single day in November, just about every single day. It's gonna be nice to just have a break from making videos every day, from filming at weird times, inconvenient times. It's just gonna be great. To wrap up this NaNoWriMo series, I'm doing a Q&A. So I asked everyone on Twitter if they had questions for me, and I asked you guys in a previous video to leave comments if you had any questions. So we're just gonna go ahead and jump right in. I have not looked at these questions or thought about them in any way, so I apologize if this is gonna get a little bit rambly. Let's start with Twitter. I have to find this tweet first.
Santa baby, a 54 convertible to light blue. Anyone else think that song is really creepy and yet I sing it every year?
Why can I not find this tweet? Here it is, okay. Okay, the first question that I have is from Peterson Wenke. This person asked, do you have book recommendations on magical realism? I've read The Strange and Beautiful Sorrows of Ava Lavender by Leslie Walton and loved it. I loved that book too, so I'm really glad that you enjoyed it. You know, I am overdue for magical realism. I feel like I can't really recommend a good book in that category. But what I will do is direct you to Ariel Bissett, who I think maybe 2 years ago even, did a series on magical realism. So if I can find it, I will link that in a description down below because I'm sure there's some amazing recommendations in there that I would also like to read. So thanks for drawing my attention to that. Okay, Emily Reeves asks, what type of book, genre, theme, comparative titles would you love to edit? This question I could probably think a lot about and have a million different answers, but off the top of my head, I'd have to say definitely children's chapter books, kind of veering onto middle grade. In terms of comparative titles, it's interesting. I would say Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, anything by Judy Blume, really. I would love to edit something like that deals with kind of the pains of growing up, but also has some humor mixed in. Dandelions Inc. says, hi, would you like to be an author someday? If so, what genre would you / do you write in? I don't have any aspirations at the moment to be an author. At this point, I'm really just enjoying working with other people who have stories to tell and making those stories the best that they can be. The next question comes from Denise Kujin. I may be butchering that. I'm really sorry if I am. But Denise asks, do you tend to read specific books or genre in summer, autumn, and winter? And if so, which? And thank you for all your awesome videos. Thank you for watching. I'm definitely a contemporary gal in the summer. I read a lot of like quick, entertaining, light and fluffy sort of reads in the summer. I would say fantasy, I read more so at the beginning of the year. Probably for really stupid reasons. Like I want to read as many books as I can to meet my Goodreads goal towards the end of the year, so I'm not reading a lot of chunky books at the end of the year. Although I am reading The Sweet Far Thing by Libba Bray right now, and that's like almost 900 pages, so there goes that theory. I definitely gravitate toward thrillers in the fall, although I did not read a lot of thrillers like I thought I would this fall. So this year was kind of a weird reading year for me, I'm not gonna lie. Rachel Ann writes, asks, does the fact that you're so active on social media, YouTube, Bookstagram, and Twitter, etc., ever get overwhelming or cause you anxiety? If so, what are some of the best ways you've learned to deal with it? I love this question, and I feel like it's something that so many people wrestle with because yes, it does overwhelm me and it does affect my anxiety, especially being on Twitter. And being in like a negative headspace, I can spiral pretty easily in that kind of sense. I give myself limits. I don't reach for my phone in the morning. I don't like to start my day off with social media. And I also don't have Facebook, which I feel like helps a lot. And then for Instagram, I don't know if this is something other booktubers do, but I actually don't have a personal Instagram account. I just have a bookish account, and I really only follow bookish people on that account, so I'm not overwhelmed with kind of all of these social interactions or like lifestyle type things that, I don't know. I think Instagram, it's really hard to, especially with Instagram, because everything's so edited. It's really easy to compare yourself to other people and get caught up in like how somebody else looks like they have this perfect all together or put together life. And so following pretty book accounts where people literally just post pictures of their books, it makes me so happy. And it's like, I only browse Bookstagram now when I'm looking for inspiration to read. I don't really go to it just mindlessly. Toby Augustin said, hey, I'm a new subscriber. Thanks for subscribing. And I was wondering what advice you would give to a high schooler, being me, interested in a career of publishing, and what are the jobs within the publishing industry? That is so great that you are actually thinking about the specific career path that you want to go into as a high schooler, because I was not thinking about publishing in high school, and I really wish that I had had a head start. I would say keep learning about the industry, whether that's subscribing to newsletters or blogs or magazines. Subscribing to Publishers Weekly might be really helpful if you are able to do that. And learning from other industry professionals. One thing that I tell people a lot is to not be afraid to go out and just have informational interviews with people. I think you'd be surprised how generous people are with their time. Not only does that help you put your foot in the door, but it also just gives you valuable information from somebody who's doing it currently. And I think that showing that initiative is really valuable if that publishing house happens to be hiring interns. Or they may know of somebody that they could point you in the right direction. In terms of different kinds of publishing jobs, there are so many. I couldn't even begin to think of them all. There's literary agents, publicists, different kinds of editors. You've got copy editors, proofreaders, production editors, but it really kind of depends on the type of work that you want to do. You could find work at a publishing house in sales, in marketing and advertising. I'm obviously more familiar with the editorial side of things, so you could become an acquisitions editor, where you literally acquire the titles. You could become an editorial assistant, which is a little bit more entry level than an acquisitions editor. There are so many roles and so many possibilities depending on what you're interested in. You could become a book designer, which I've always thought is really cool, but I just don't have the eye for that at all. Okay, moving on to the YouTube comments. I have a question from Jen the librarian. She said, when do you think a writer or author should look to hire an editor? Should it be before or after seeking out an agent? Does it depend on the project or person? Also, have you started thinking about your reading/booktube goals for 2018? This is a tricky question because I think there are so many ways you could do it, especially depending on the level of editing that you're looking for. I would say if you're a writer and you've written everything that you can write and you feel like you're ready for the next stage, you feel like you're rounding a corner with your manuscript, whether it's finished or you know that you're stuck in some way and you need a developmental editor, I think in that way you kind of know when your book is ready, and you know if you're serious enough about it to hire somebody to help with it. For line editing or heavy copy editing, content editing, proofreading, anything like that, you want to make sure that you're completely finished with your manuscript before you reach out to an editor. And editors have different kinds of availability. There are some editors out there who need like 6 months notice before they can work on your novel just because they're so full or they're maybe not working full time as an editor. In my case, my sweet spot, I feel like, is probably like 2 months out from when you're looking for an editor. Sometimes if I'm in a really busy season, I won't be able to take on another project with just 2 months notice. I would say that's probably generally what you want to do because it could take a while. You have to get a sample edit, you have to agree on a timeline, you have to agree on a quote. There's a lot to kind of work out before the editor can actually begin working on your novel. I think you could pursue an editor before or after an agent, but I do think there's value in having an editor look at your work before you send it off to an agent. Because if you're able to have an agent, that really opens a lot of doors for publishers, but agents are being bombarded with great quality content just as much as publishers are. So you want to make sure that your submission is as compelling as possible. So the other question that Jen asked me was, have I been thinking about my reading goals for 2018. And I haven't really been thinking about my reading goals. I have been thinking about my booktube goals. And I have some videos planned for the future that are a little bit different, but they are bookish content, and they're a little bit more, I don't know how to say this, like poetic maybe? I don't know. I don't want to say too much about it and jinx it because it's in the very beginning stages, but I do have some ideas that I'm really excited about. Rainey asked, you've talked about editing Christian books. Do you have any recommendation for good Christian fiction? It seems like that genre gets bad publicity, and I'm curious what you think of the genre. All right, I'm gonna be real with you guys. I am not a fan of Christian fiction. You're right that it does have a bad rep, and I don't know. If you have some good recommendations out there, please let me know. I just find that it's cheesy and not well written, and I would love to find more Christian fiction out there. I'm sure that it exists, but all of the Christian fiction that I've found is not great. I have read a lot of narrative nonfiction that feels like fiction that is in the Christian kind of category, or the authors are Christian and there's a lot of Christian themes throughout the book. Wish I could say differently. I really do. Emma M asks, what is your best advice for a dual narrated novel or multiple POVs in general? Would both narrators be considered the protagonist if one of them is obviously not the antagonistic force? This is a really good question, and I feel like the main concern or the main temptation with multiple POVs is that you have to really be careful that you're not writing something that does not advance the plot, if that makes sense. Everything you write needs to advance the plot, and so if you're going back and forth, literally going back and forth between two people every single chapter, it can be a little bit grating for the reader unless there's something that occurs, unless the plot is really fast moving, or there's deepened characterization that really makes readers turn the pages. Because I've found, and I feel like a lot of readers find this to be true, that usually you connect as a reader to one character over the other, and it can be hard to kind of flip through and come to a section or a chapter from a character that you don't really care about. And so you just want to kind of get to the next character's perspective. Be wary of that, I guess. Like, make sure that your characters, whether they're antagonistic or not, make sure that they are complex, that they're likable, that there's redeemable qualities, even if they're not good people or whatever. I would say just work on making sure readers can connect to each character. And if both characters are central enough to the storyline, then that should kind of happen organically. I would say, yeah, you can have two protagonists for sure. Amy Kathleen asks, what book or series have you not read that is or was super popular that everyone read? I have not read anything by Sarah J. Maas. Not a single word. Leah Baldock asks, most embarrassing book you have and haven't read. Well, she asked two other questions, but we'll start with this one. Most embarrassing book that I have and haven't read. Okay, I can't really think of an embarrassing book that I have read, because honestly, I feel like all of the books I've read, I'm not embarrassed by them. I guess Twilight would be the obvious. I read Twilight when they came out however many years ago. I wasn't even really like a big fan of them, but I do remember walking around in public with that book in my bag and being like, oh, I hope nobody sees this cover. I will say that as much as I love the Gemma Doyle series, trilogy by Libba Bray, and I'm currently finishing the last one, I will say that the covers are terrible in my opinion. I just think they're awful, and so I kind of have a little bit of reader shame when I'm carrying them around, but I'm not embarrassed by the series, and I will gladly recommend it to anyone. And most embarrassing that I haven't read, I don't know if this means the most embarrassing book on my shelf that I haven't read, or most embarrassing, or it's embarrassing that I haven't read it. Clearly I'm like overthinking this completely. I'm pretty embarrassed that I still haven't read Crooked Kingdom. Okay, Leah's second question is, were you read to when you were young? I feel like you've answered this in a previous video. I didn't really grow up reading on my parents' laps or anything like that. I distinctly remember like 3rd grade, around that age, a teacher reading during story time in my class and being totally enchanted by the book. But I don't really have experiences of being read aloud to. Number 3, book character you wouldn't mind slapping. Leah is slaying these questions right now. I would have to say, even though I love all of my children equally in the Raven Cycle series, Ronan, as much as I love him, seriously, bless him, he has done some stupid things and said some stupid things, and there have been times when I've wanted to slap him. The Reading Hideout asks, I'm looking into starting to freelance edit, but was wondering on the business end how that works. As far as payment goes, do you use PayPal or do other ways work better? How do you advertise your business? Do you go through a certain website? I love all the editing advice you've posted so far. It has helped me so much. Thank you. I'm glad you've enjoyed my talks about editing, because I feel like it can be really boring. So I'm glad somebody else enjoys that. In terms of payment, I usually request check, or Venmo is a really great app. I don't know if you've heard of it. PayPal is great too, but they do take out a service charge. So that's something to be aware of. I don't really advertise my business except through social media, which has proven to be very valuable for me. And I get a lot of repeat business and referral business just through like word of mouth. Michelle Mann asks, what city/state do you live in? I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. It's a great place to live. Y'all can visit anytime. She also asks, what's one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you started BookTube? I would say before, when I started BookTube, I had all of these ambitions to have everything be a little bit too perfect, probably, to have all of these books read every single month, and to make these kinds of videos and only these kinds of videos. And I think that I finally came to terms with the fact that I'm not a fast reader, first of all, and that I can create other kinds of bookish content that people enjoy, like reading vlogs, and editing and writing videos. I've definitely learned that I can create the kind of videos that I want to create, and that there's a space for that. And I wish that I had known that when I first started out, because I was probably a little bit too stressed in the beginning. My Weekend Coffee asks, if you could only have one book or book series to read or reread for the rest of your life, what would it be? That's such a hard question. I would have to say probably the Chronicles of Narnia series. Helena, I think that's right, Helena Reads asks, how did you discover BookTube? I just kind of stumbled upon it. I think I was probably looking for thoughts on a particular book that I don't even remember reading. I think I first found Reagan from the Peruse Project. I think she was like the first booktuber that I found, and I was like immediately obsessed with her content. Okay, I think those are all the questions, and I definitely need to wrap this up because I'm sure it's really long. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for watching if you've been sticking around for my NaNoWriMo series. And all of the videos I've created in the past month. Thank you so much. I'm really excited about the videos that I have planned and returning to some bookish content because I feel like I miss talking about books with you guys. Good luck to those of you who are going to be editing your novels in December and revising. Make sure to reach out to your editor when you're ready to have somebody look at your manuscript. And yeah, I will talk to you guys soon. Not tomorrow, soon. Bye.